Issues. About 2 years ago, almost to the day, President Bloomingdale had a lot of us out at the conference in Harrisburg and told us about the importance of cross-lobbying, that we have to have teachers lobbying on behalf to get PLAs, prevailing wage, keep those kind of things, and we have to have construction workers talking about the wine and spirit stores, knowing all of our issues and really becoming one. I made, Jim, you weren't here when I said it, but I made an example earlier today. The building trades meets twice a month, and you go over all the issues. You don't always agree, but the communication lines are out there, and you will pretty much know what's going on. And I'm recommending we do the same thing with some of the folks in the government workers, that the folks at Cedar Brook know what's going on at Graysdale, that the folks in Lehigh County know what's going on in Northampton County, because your issues are similar, but you're all in your own little single island here. And not to single out one group, but we can't all be like the cops. So we have to work together, because if we don't, we'll all die separately, and that's no way. So there's a lot of things that are happening on here. I put on an item here from the wine and spirits, and I'm not, I had some copies made, but not enough. Why in God's name Corbett wants to sell off an asset that's producing revenue is beyond me. Actually, I know why. It's union payback. This is political payback for all the folks who went door to door and who talked to their members and educated them. Because we're the last bastion. We're the last ones standing. We're the largest group out there that are together in some semblance, and once we're gone, there's nothing left for the hard right to worry about. We are the last wall. It's up to us to maintain the legacy that our relatives have put on ahead of us. And when I was reading about last week, or watching on the History Network about the Homestead strikers, 2,000, they're not letting the Pinkertons go through and allowing scabs to go through, and what those folks did, armed with rocks, versus you talk about a well-armed militia, the Pinkertons were better armed than the U.S. Army. Those people, and I'm going to be offensive here, they had balls like this. We need to start growing these things, everybody in this room together, because it ain't happening. We're too afraid to write a letter. Well, you know what? That battle is here, folks. This is it. It's political payback, and they want us done. And Corbett doesn't care too much if he's a one-term governor. I think he's a lot like Scott Walker in that respect. He'll get his dues afterwards for some really cushy paying jobs to speak, how he screwed unions in PA. The bastion of labor, where labor once started. I screw those people in PA. So think about this. Why do you want to sell something like this? The average worker's making about 34 grand a year. They are not feeding their Vanguard funds constantly on what they're making. They're making a decent wage. Now I work in, as many of you know, I work in a bar for the last 20 years. I worked in retailing before that. And I can tell you one thing is definite. If and when these stores, the big box stores, because they're the only ones who can afford to get this license, if they are allowed to sell liquor in those stores, they are not going to be calling Jim Riley to knock down a wall and start building 10,000 square feet of new space. They are going to close underperforming departments and add liquor. Costco spent almost $500 million lobbying the legislators in the state of Washington so they could sell liquor in their stores. Any guess how many items they're selling in their stores right now? And I got $80 for the first person to come within 100 pieces.
I know.
Shut up. She reads my emails, God bless her. 57 items. Walk into the wine and spirit store down here in the Airport Road Center.
Pay up, so.
Go rub a lamp. Turn that off, will you? You can find 57 items in a 6-foot shelving on one side of the bunker. This is not giving you better selection. Pennsylvania is the largest importer of wines in the world. They're making money on this. It's not broke. You know, if they were bleeding $100 million a year, I can almost see the argument for it, almost. But they're not. They're making $500 million a year. And one of the things that the Clear Coalition talks about is the sales tax. Everyone aware that not all the organizations have to pay the 6%? Most of them pay 5%. There's an antiquated law back when they used adding machines and had folks in the back room counting it up. They were allowed to keep 1% for maintaining their payment on time. It's done with a button today. But a lot of folks keep that extra 1%. The wine and spirit stores do not keep that 1%. That goes back in the state. There's also zero collection delinquency. It's done that second. There are some places around here. I can tell you one that burned recently was delinquent in their state sales tax. I can see it right from here. That happens sometimes. Here's a way, it's not broke, don't fix it. They're making money, they got a decent pension, the state's making money, you're keeping a controlled substance controlled.
I was going to add a suggestion. When you go in to your state wine and spirit stores, talk to the clerks, talk to them, ask them how they're doing. I went in the day after, 2 days after New Year's Eve, just shot up a conversation and found out that the store up on Taylor made $44,000 just on December 31st alone. This is Taylor. I mean,
But here's the thing, a really important part of this. When you have the clerks taking this, there is a zero tolerance for serving underage. There is no grievance process, there's no arbitration process. It's a death penalty right then. They are done, end of sentence, period. I'm tip certified. I check identification. If I get nailed with that, I pay a fine. So if I'm a 19-year-old kid working at effing Walmart, do I have any inclination, maybe I want to sell my friend something because they're underage? Good possibility. Having gone to bars when I was 15 in New Jersey, I know what that's like. My 18th birthday, the owner bought me a drink. You're here for 3 years, and he had to have a drink. But that's how it is, And really, if you look at the other side, if you do get someone who has a liquor store in, say, North Philadelphia, are they going to sell 1 bottle of Grey Goose, or are they going to sell 6 bottles of Jockwins to make more money? Because now they got a big nut to crack. They got to pay that rent each month. They got to pay brick and mortar charges. They have to pay other costs associated with this. There's an incentive to sell more in the improper fashion. These things happen every day. If you have kids, this can happen to everybody. And it's not broke. There's no reason to fix something that's not broke, especially for a one-time fee of $1 billion. We'll make that in 2 years. And the other folks, the poor slump of the beer distributor, is not making the money because they got to pay $150,000 to get a liquor license. And you don't mortgage that, folks. That's cash. And you better have cash in the barrel because they're not going to let you pay overtime. You need cash. Who's going to have that, by the way? Well, probably Walmart, probably Giant, probably Wegmans. This is not for small business, so don't let them bamboozle you. This has nothing to do with small business. And a small business, by definition, according to the government, is companies with 500 employees or less. You folks at Dixie have that many. You're not a small business. I look at the place down the street here, the Copperhead. That's about 20 people. That's a small business. It's a big, big difference. So keep your eye on the ball with this. I'm going to be doing something on Right to Work for Less, which impacts every one of us in this area here. And that is an important phrase to use. It's all about the verbiage. Make no mistake, this is about political retribution for unions. If you look at this memorandum that was put out about the Right to Work legislation that was introduced on January 25th, and it's a yearly type thing, but this time there's some traction. And the folks that we've worked so hard to have a good rapport with on both sides, like President Bloomingdale says, we haven't had the Wisconsins or the Indianas or the Michigans because we've maintained a good rapport. We don't always vote for the Democrats because, you're right, they're not always our friends. I found it interesting this morning watching the comments from Ryan McKenzie, watching his comments. Oh, gee, the governor was right on. He hit every point. This is a great budget. You want to go over and smack him. You look at Schlossberg. Mike Schlossberg did a phenomenal response. He said, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, it needs to change. And this is a guy who was in office for 3 weeks. Every time I see Mike Schlossberg, I'm more and more impressed. Not that I have to be, but I am. I've known Mike since he was a scared kid working the Rendell campaign. He is polished. And to watch McKenzie with this oh boy thing and Schlossberg saying this is all wrong, for a new person in Harrisburg, that's phenomenal. And he deserves a thank you. So if you get a chance to meet with him, tell him he said thanks for what he's doing. We have to work with the right, which is something else I want to do too. We need to pick out some vulnerable people, and Dennis and I have talked about this, some vulnerable candidates who are scared of us. And one comes in mind, and she's a little bit further north up here, and it's Julia Harhart. If we go up there and start talking Right to Work for Less with her, or Wine and Spirits, Jim, you've lobbied her. Steve Samuelson, how did I vote on this? Because I don't remember. You talk about vulnerable, there's vulnerable. And she sees the cameras in front of her on a Friday afternoon in front of her office, she will need to change her pants. So you know what? We haven't touched on her. It's time. Emmerich, the same thing. A former teacher, Good. And his mother was a garment worker?
Still is.
You know?
No, she just retired, and he worked on the, toll booths on the.
So obviously the man has recalled his roots. I want to bring you to something on this piece, this memorandum. They want to eliminate the ability of public employers and representative unions to negotiate clauses in collective bargaining agreements which requires the deduction of union dues or political contributions used from paychecks. Notice they put union dues or contributions right next to each other. That's done for a reason. It's also important to note that several groups such as prison guards, firemen, and policemen will not be affected by this proposal. Why? Why is that? What do you
Is it
think?
good for them?
Their votes.
No, because under Act 195, they could water some of it down. Under Act 195, those individual groups have the right to interest arbitration for their contracts. That's the only reason, because they don't have a right to.
I think there's more than that, because police officers more often than not are given the first, listen, a lot of my friends, they don't always vote the right way. I go back and forth with John Blair, who's a great guy, great golfer, good friend, and he's always saying how bad these Dems are. But I want to find one Republican in that caucus that says, John, that's a damn good pension you have, let's keep that, let's do more of it. And the silence is deafening, because there are none. That's part of this too. This is political retribution. Now, the next sentence starts with, since some of this money is used for political purposes. What do you think people are going to see? Some of this money or political purposes? We all know it is illegal since 1988, since Beck versus CWA, you can't have union dues going to political contributions. Yet, the inference is here, and they're going to keep on feeding that. And they're going to make people think, well, yeah, the union dues, why should they do that? You know, not all the members give to the PAC. That's just how it is. So this is an interesting thing. They're going to use words to really screw us. So unless we're taking the time to truly educate our members, educate our friends with every opportunity. And I'm going to give two bizarre instances that I look at. One recently, one not so recently. Rocky 2. Rocky gets laid off. He's going into a meat packing plant to try and get his work. He's working his ass off every shift, every piece of overtime. Every bit of time here, he's there. And the guy has to lay him off. Sorry, Rocky, it's a tough break. Union rules. It's not union rules, it's a contract! Both sides agreed to this. It's a fucking contract! And that's what we say to Corbett. You know, you want to renege on your responsibilities for the pensions? You stop paying PPL right now. What is the difference? You stop paying all your suppliers. What is the difference? Stop paying for the cafeteria in the Capitol building. What? It's a vendor. It's one more bill. But unless we stop people and say, no, hang on a second. It's not union rules. It's a contract that both sides agreed to. And when you start talking about changing the rules in the game with the pensions, and saying, well, this is different now, we have to change. Well, you know, a contract was signed. And a lot of those folks, I look back at the folks at Aguirre, who signed on for health care after their retirement until they got to Social Security and Medicare. They lost all that. They bargained for it. They bargained for that benefit in lieu of a higher salary. And the company then said, guess what? No mas. So there is a contract. So we have to call them out for what they are. If you're going to break contracts, then you don't just pick and choose. You break all of them, we start from scratch. How does that sound? And we start with assets by selling the governor's mansion with fat ass in there. I have a dream. I sound like Martin Luther King, but I have a dream. I want to see Tom Corbett bunking with Jerry Sandusky. That's my dream. So God bless Kathleen Kane, and God bless all of you for getting out there and getting her voted in. That's phenomenal. And it didn't take her long to start moving, did it? So that's what's happening. Now, right to work for less. Don't get bogged down with a lot of the verbiage. 4 basic points. When you are in right to work for less, you get less money. Actually, right to work for less takes away your rights and does not guarantee you a job. You get less money. Whether they're union or not, it's poor education, and the reading scores will show you this. There's more deaths and injuries on the job, and your unemployment benefits are lower than they are in states like PA. PA, the median salary for a union worker is, actually any worker is higher than 20 out of the 22 states that are currently right to work for less. You need to know some basics on that. I did provide more in here, but it's important to know those things. Now, it's gonna be hard getting past some, and last night I had one. I went to get my haircut. What's left of it? Little place in Topton. She's open till midnight if you want to, it doesn't matter. She charged me $10 for a haircut. I gave her 25. One of her customers said, "Oh, you charge too much for a town like Topton." This is the mentality the folks have. I'm in the hardware store because I like going to the small mom and pop shops. One was talking to the clerk for an hour, it seemed. She wouldn't stop. Then she goes, "Yeah, my husband, he left his first wife. She had all the money, you know, she was making $14 an hour, and she's rich." This is the mentality we have to overcome. So when they hear someone's making, wow, 32 an hour, goddamn, you're rich. You're one of them. You're one of the 1%ers, Dave Seltzer. You know? But that's the mentality. It's unfortunate, but that's what we're fighting. So it is a constant battle. You have to know the revenue options. You have to know the extra 1% that's available, that the Clear Coalition has identified. You have to know, obviously, about Marcellus Shale, what a disaster that is. You know, the cigar and the smokeless tobacco is going to be a real tough nut. Probably tougher than the other ones. We're not going to win on all these, but there's some we can. We can obviously win on some of these. And my thing is, I think you would all agree, if you are going to present an issue to a superior or another company or whoever you're negotiating with, you need to come up with a solution, not just a bitch. Here's the problem. Here's how I want to solve it. Here's the problem with revenue. Here's how I want to solve it. Let's keep this here and let's modernize. Right? This, I don't know if you know this. In the state stores alone, all the items are flat 35% markup. That's ridiculous. Now your end result might want to be 35%. I get that. But a bottle of Grey Goose should not be priced the same way as a bottle of Jocelyn's Bar Vodka. You should have a higher markup with the lower price, and you work that out, and you do your magic. You can still make that same amount, but you're price fair, you're more market conscious, you're more competitive with the neighboring states. They've done a good job with some of this, but they need to go a little further. So it's modernized and not privatized. But looking at all the options for revenue, every single piece. One other thing that Dennis Howard mentioned too, because you know, if we lose the advantage of having dues taken out of the paycheck, obviously a lot of folks will probably choose not to. And Dennis came back and countered and said, well, then I'll come out to the shop every day and collect money. And you really don't want me in the shop every day, do you? To the owner. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? You know they don't want that. I'm going to be doing the Business Matters taping tomorrow with Vice President of Laborers from Virginia. I can't think of it. Dennis Morani, I don't know. Apparently he's pretty sharp. And there's a young lady who is very big in the Tea Party. She's been on Neil Cavuto's show, and she's been on Chris Matthews, and she's done Fox and Friends and every right-wing thing. So I guess she debated Chris Matthews on it. So it's going to be kind of interesting. But it's just amazing how they're going to try and change things. I can see it now. Plus our boy Simon Campbell.
He's in Texas now.
He's supposed to be there tomorrow for the taping.
Well, he's now in Texas.
Is that right?
Yes.
And he's a futures trader, I understand.
Yes.
There's someone who's sucking the blood off the investors getting derivatives. You know, if we put 3 cents in every derivatives trade, we get about $2 billion in revenue for the country. He is out to lunch. Now here's someone from the UK and someone from Brazil who are telling us how to run our country better. My response, I want to say, is some were born with a silver spoon in their mouth and a green card in their wallet. That's just my thought. But it's,
I want to hear that on the show.
oh, I'm going to say it. She's damn right. What are you going to throw me out? What do I care?
Exactly.
But some other issues here. You know, if we lose this opportunity to have the dues taken out, and someone says, why should they have to do that? Well, your FICA charges come out of your paycheck. If you're doing your 401k, you're doing your federal withholding, that all comes out. If you're contributing to United Way, and I hope you are, shameless plug, that comes out of your paycheck. All these items come out. So you stop one, you stop them all. I no longer want to pay my federal withholding ahead of time. I want to do it at the end of the year. You need to trust me as an American citizen that I will pay my taxes on time and in full. Why must I do this? Why does the IRS take a full 0.5% interest on delinquent payments than what I pay them? I don't understand this. But really, that fight comes out to, get to the basics, the common sense that folks see. Show them the paycheck. Here it is. Stop all these payments, not just the dues itself. And explain, union dues cannot be used, we all know this, cannot be used for political purposes. That's the bottom line. So one of these folks says this, and they're gonna say tomorrow, you stop mid-attraction, interrupt and say, you know what, you are wrong. 1988, Beck versus CWA, look it up. And you can finish that sentence if you like.
Alternative negotiating table, same damn thing.
Absolutely. So these are the battles. You gotta fight it one by one by one, and sometimes with our own members, which is a sad thing. So I don't wanna belabor the points on this. It's important. Right to work for less is coming our way. And this goes back, by the way, it's not a brand new term. This goes back to 1935. This was even before the Wagner Act, the ink was wet on that. And what they also trying to change it to a really cool little name is not new. They want to call it the American Plan back then. And they got stuck with right to work. We call it, of course, right to work for less. And one of the interesting parts of this is the American Automobile Manufacturing Association, I believe was the one here. Yes, the Automobile Manufacturers Association started a serious right to work for less in 1935 because they saw that unions were gaining some strength on this. That might sound familiar, that term, the Automobile Manufacturers Association. Mitt Romney's father was the main lobbyist with them 4 years later, before he took over AMC. So it kind of all goes in line here, but it's important to know the verbiage. Correct folks when they're incorrect, and know it yourself. So I don't want to hold you all up on these things, but the information that's on here, you have a really good, some good pieces on Q&A, what is right to work for less, what are the basic numbers on it. Know those things on the top of your head. You don't need to know all the details, much the same way the numbers on the pension. You don't need to know that. You need to know 4 talking points. Keep it to 4, no more, no less, and you'll be fine with that. But I guarantee you, things are going to be happening, they are happening right now, and we are not going to stand still. We are going to go to their offices, we will see Ryan McKenzie, we will see Justin Simmons, we will see Julie Harhart and his ass Emmerich. We're going to make sure these folks know that we're around here. And we're not going to be violent. Although Joe Biden said civil disobedience should be an option for labor, and maybe we use that when we have to, but I think being professional, stating the facts, and counting them when they're wrong is the key on this. So I really thank you all for coming out today. You know, it's different. Not every issue affects the teachers, or the firefighters, or the trades, but really, we are one, we are together. And an injury to one is an injury to all. So I thank you for coming out, taking the time to know this. Let's stay in contact, we'll do this again as we have to. But I want to thank you for coming out too, really taking your time, because you're traveling over the place, and it was nice we could kind of get together here and talk about some of these things. It's happening, folks. We got to be on our guard now.